Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss a topic of high relevance for UPSC, that is stampede and its prevention. So when it comes to stampede is a quite regular occurrence in India, primarily because we have 140 crore plus population, which might be nearing to 145 crores from the last census. And apart from a large population, India is a country of deep religious belief system, making a lot of people gather together for some specific events on specific occasions. And this is a major reason for the occurrence of stampede. And let us try to first and foremost define what a stampede means. A stampede is nothing but is a sudden surge of people in a crowd that can lead to fatalities or injuries, and usually the stampede occurs because of panic, fear, limited space or sudden movements of people are the reasons for the occurrence of stampede. And if you look at this stampede as a phenomenon, it has been very regular. The recent incidents are the 𝐾𝐞𝐚𝐽 stampede during the day of Mauni Amavasya. Then apart from that, the Vaikunta Ekadasi stampede in TTD. Then apart from that, the New Delhi railway station stampede because of the Magadha Express change of plan. So all of these stampedes are pointing to us that in crowd management, we are failing big time. Because between 1996 to 2022, the total number of people who died in stampedes is nearly 3,000. 3,000 people dying in stampedes is a very huge number, and the Indian government's National Disaster Management Authority has given a list of causes of the stampede, and along with that it also has given a lot many suggestions with respect to prevention of stampede. And if you look at the NDMA, this is an image of the Mahakumbh. You can look at how on one side the river is flowing, on the other a lot of crowd is in fact gathered at the river. See, in these kind of situations, planning entry and exit points itself becomes very difficult. And along with stampede, there are high possibilities of people falling into the river and suffocating to their death. These kind of unique challenges are present. But if you look at the NDMA guidelines with respect to stampede, it has very clearly stated that the most important causes for a stampede to occur are force, information, space and time, which it calls as FIST. Force, information, space and time. So if you look at the first factor for occurrence of a stampede is crowd force. Because when the people are gathered in large numbers, what happens is individuals will lose their identity and rational thinking and sometimes behave like a mob. Once the crowd becomes mob, it is very difficult to control the crowd because they are being guided by the crowd psychology but not the individual psychology. This is one of the most important problem in controlling the crowd. The second important problem which has been identified by the NDMA is information, because most of the times stampedes occur because of misinformation. There might be panic among the people because of misinformation, or sometimes, as in the case of New Delhi stampede, what is happening is the information is in fact given at the last movement when the train station or the platform has been changed. And that also caused the stampede. So information dissemination failure is one of the key factor. Rumors is a factor for stampede. Then apart from information dissemination, the third factor for the stampede is space, primarily because most of the events which are planned, where a large crowd gathering is expected, don't have proper spatial and temporal planning. Spatial and temporal planning, spatial and thermal planning. Thermal planning here means, if there is a closed space, if a large crowd gathers, the temperature of the place will increase. So it will lead to asphyxiation and suffocation. And how to plan the thermal planning of the space. Then apart from the thermal planning of the space, there is also a need for spatial planning. What crowd is expected? What are our preparations? All of these things are important. So spatial planning absence is also one of the cause. Then the last one is the time duration. primarily because most of the stampedes occur when there is a very quick ingress or egress of the crowd. Ingress means sudden entry of the crowd into a particular place, or the crowd wants suddenly to leave a particular place. The timing of this ingress and egress are also important causes for the stampede. Then apart from this, one more important thing that we need to understand in stampede like situations is, in fact, the NDMA has given a very clear structure of how the stampedes occur. If you look at it, okay, the circumstances of force, information, space and time, okay, if they are added to overcrowding, so then it will lead to crush disasters where people are crushed and they are injured or killed. This is called as compress asphyxiation. Whereas on the other side, there is also the problem of suffocation in this kind of situation. And if there is panic or excitement, what will happen is when a large crowd pushes, sometimes it might lead to structural failure, as in the case of Mahakumbh, where the barricades which are in fact present, they broke because of the excessive crowd pressure leading to the stampede. So structural failure is one of the important cause. Then after that, one more important factor is high desired velocity, wherein the crowd wants to ingress or egress or enter or exit a particular place in a high velocity fashion. Then naturally what it will lead to is a trampling, and usually in stampede, trampling is the most important cause of death, because some people while moving out or coming in, if they are unable to keep pace with the crowd's velocity, they will fall. Once they fall, the crowd cannot stop for the people, then it will lead to crushing of the people and their death. So this way, the NDMA itself has identified multiple causes of the stampede, how the fist factors play an important role, that is force, information, space and time, and apart from that, how asphyxiation occurs, how high velocity crowd causes trampling, structural failure. This way, multiple factors have been identified by the NDMA. Then apart from that, let us try to understand any disaster, if it is happening, we should plan to avoid the risk of the disaster. This is what the Sendai framework of United Nations clearly gives a call for. The Sendai framework, which is applicable for 2015 to 2030 year for all the member states of UN, in order to avoid disasters, it talks about an idea called disaster risk reduction. It's not talking about disaster prevention. It is talking just about reducing the risk of disaster. And as a stampede is a man-made disaster, its risk can be completely nullified if proper planning is done. And how does the proper planning should look like? What kind of steps need to be taken? Let us have a look at it. First and foremost, there should be a proper standard operating procedure for the authorities and event managers in case of a crowd gathering at a particular place. This SOP is the first important thing, and the SOP should contain provisions on clear entry points and exit points, broad walkways, barricading of the structures. Then apart from that, there is also a need to have a continuous communication with the crowd through some speakers, or radio is one more mechanism, wherein the crowd movement can be in fact disseminated to the broader crowd, is one more standard operating procedure that can be followed. And apart from the standard operating procedure, if in case any place where the crowd gathers, if the event organizer fails to protect the people from stampede like disasters, he should be held responsible for negligence, is one more provision which should be integrated into the Indian legal system, because then only the event organizers will be more careful in organization of the event. Then apart from this, one more important thing that we need to understand is planning is half work done. So which means that proper planning of the event should be very, very important. There should be more studies conducted on mob psychology. And these days, with the help of artificial intelligence, we can in fact monitor the crowd movement. So by using drones and artificial intelligence, the event organizers or administrators can keep a continuous tab on the movement of the crowd. We can resort to the technologies like LiDAR technologies, thermal images, in order to identify where the crowd hotspots are present and how to handle them. There is a need for better understanding of mob psychology, is one more important thing that we need to do. Then apart from that, if the crowd is properly educated and if it is informed about the possible disasters if the crowd becomes uncontrolled, then there is high possibility that, so if the people are properly trained, the probability of stampedes will be lesser and lesser. So this is one more factor that we need to keep in mind. Then apart from that, ready availability of medical assistance very nearby to the place where the crowd is being gathered. All of these things should be taken into consideration. Then apart from that, structural integrity, particularly of barricades, stages. So all of these things should have proper structural integrity. Then only there is a less possibility for stampede. So these kind of things can be worked out in order to reduce the risk of stampede. So as has been pointed out earlier too, stampede is completely a man-made disaster, and proper disaster risk reduction strategies under Sendai framework can completely avoid the deaths in a stampede. So that is what we need to focus upon. All right. Thank you.